Welcome to Nonprofit Network, powered by Stokes Auction Group. We are a podcast focused on benefit auctions and fundraising events for the nonprofit community. We are a group of fundraising professionals that specialize in raising funds to improve communities of all sizes. Welcome. Hello. Hey, how are you? We're doing a podcast today.
We are. That's why we're here to give you lots of tips and answers.
Oh my gosh, get out of here.
So it's, Q&A or tips and answers. You can do the...
Stop trying to make TNA a thing.
TNA
is not a thing.
Tips
it's not
and
okay.
answers. I like it. It's got tread. I think if you've got a dirty mind, it's your problem, not mine.
We're trending backwards.
But we are here to give you tips. I would like to say, we're going to talk about stress today.
Yeah, we are. First things first, let's hop into the weekend. I had an event, and it was at a Catholic community up north, and it was a lot of fun. We had about 200 people at a church, and boy, it was just awesome. The energy was good. People were drinking maybe more than they should have, and celebrating, and it was awesome. A very good community, a very tight show. One thing that we did run into is we had an MC who had been in this position before of doing the MC role, kind of came by and said, yeah, I've done this before, it's all good. So we brought this individual in, and then when it came to be time, he was not so focused on keeping the timeline of the night or reading the scriptions. It was more of a, hey, let's be here and just kind of make this fun and lively, which is always good, but keeping the timeline wasn't the utmost priority. So I guess all that to say, we've done an episode.
Stress.
Yeah, ergo stress ensues. But what I would say is, when you're trying to recruit those MCs, you want somebody from in the community? Check. You want somebody that's comfortable on microphone? Check. Thirdly, you want somebody that's going to keep the night moving as the master of ceremonies. Because when you got a timeline, you want to keep to it, but also be timely with what you're delivering to the group. And I felt like we missed that a little bit.
Yeah.
Typically what we've run into historically is there's been one auctioneer, one MC. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always have to be that way. I had a gig a couple weeks ago where I had three. Mm-hmm. I had an MC who was up on the stage and he kept the timeline, did very, very well, and then I had two color guys that were out with microphones out in the audience. So I actually had three. So you could break the mold, mm-hmm. but it doesn't have to be a typical one MC, one auctioneer. We're constantly trying to change things up and make things fun and new and interesting and kind of hype up the audience maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
That's one way to do that.
Yeah, and we kind of had a little bit of a guy who stepped into a hype man role at our event on Saturday, and it was different than the traditional auctioneer bid spotter role that we would normally see. And I think that what we're finding is we're pushing these different directions that are maybe uncomfortable and out of our comfort zone, definitely. But what we're doing is constantly trying to reinvent what's happening. Now, there's some tried and true practices that have been great, but I think that trying to break the mold and get outside of your comfort zone is important, especially mm-hmm. coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, huge shout out to our MC on Saturday night, Shelly Hart. I'm going to go ahead and just give her that shout out. 106.9 warm, getting ready to start Christmas music, she said, here soon. So she gets it. She gets it. She's a part of the group. The second she walks in, man, she's on it. She's just such a professional. I appreciate that about her. I think the stress that you have at these galas is it's probably applied to you by the community as well as maybe your committee as well as yourself, and that can get you into a box where you maybe end up doing too many things for your audience, or you end up losing the end idea of it. But something that we haven't talked about a lot of is stress, and the stress that goes into these auctions, the stress that's why the day after people literally don't get out of their pajamas because they're so pooped.
Right.
And that's because of the big build-up to it, the big, huge build-up to it. And did I do it right? Did I have enough? Did I have too much? How was the food? Did Joe Derte at table 9 get, in trouble? Did he make somebody mad? Was he mad? Did he can we double something? Did we cross a line? Did we not cross a line?
Right. So you're saying a lot, and like in terms of like closing out the weekend. I know you guys were at an event where there were a lot of games, and going into that event for you guys, and I wasn't there personally, but I was worried about there being too many things going on, almost like too many games, too many options that would have been a little bit difficult to execute on each one. It sounded like you guys still had a good event, and all of those things worked out for you. Which was
did.
cool.
It was incredible, but it was a lot for them to juggle. Gotcha. So when you have a lot of those extra pieces, and keep in mind, it worked out beautifully for this organization. They did a heck of a job, and they raised a pile of money. Yeah, hats off.
Shout out to her team, too,
Shout
because I'm a big fan of that team.
Yeah,
good work.
So she, they had tried to have something for everybody, and I love that, and I love that it worked out. That being said, you don't have to have something for everybody because we're all there for one reason. We know the reason that we're there. We're there to raise money for the organization,
How
right?
many people were there?
We had probably, I'd say, 500, maybe 400. It was a big crowd. So,
So I guess like one thing that I'd like to posit here is that was a big success with a lot of different games and fundraising activities. And I think the reason that it was able to work the way it was and reach the successes that it did is because they have a team that is well dialed and well assembled and been doing it for years and know how to actually go above and beyond and push a little bit further than the other organizations. To kind of wrap this back to our topic of the day, which is stress, if you are a new event planner or a new individual that's been put on in terms or been asked to do a fundraising event, like this can be a very stressful time for people.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
And the more you add on, the more stress you could potentially incur. I would hope in that situation that team was so well dialed and knowing 3 or 4 of their teammates at minimum, I'm sure that they did do well. But let's talk about stress a little bit and like some tactics on how to deal with stress in terms of an event.
I will honestly go back to the simplistic idea of and I know this is hard to do because there's going to be stress regardless of what you do, right? But you need to take 10 minutes, an hour before the auction starts or something, and go be alone as one of the lead people. Go be alone with yourself for just about 10 minutes. Self-reflect, just really try to get into that zone of, I've done everything I can. I am ready for tonight. Whatever is going to be is going to be. I couldn't have done any better. I couldn't have changed anything. It's going to go, and we're going to make this happen tonight. So self-reflect on that. Get into your zone.
And then take a shot of vodka.
And then a shot. No, but you know what I'm saying? Get into that zone where you're self-involved for a very short time and nobody gets to get in that bubble.
Yeah, and I think like when you're going into an event, there's only so many things that you could actually control, right?
Oh gosh,
there's only so many things. And Paul, I think you brought this up earlier. It's so easy to come into these events and worry about every little thing. Right, but so much of that is out of our control, right?
There are many things that are out of your control. That, like Kelly just said, you've done all the work. You've been preparing for this for a year. Yep. Don't forget that. Don't be naive. I mean, things are going to happen, but you have a pretty good idea in the back of your mind what you're going to do if this happens. What am I going to do if this happens? None of these things that happen, other than losing power, are going to be completely catastrophic, right?
Which actually happened to me on
Yes.
Saturday.
Yeah. Did it really?
Yeah. So our event lost. So we were at a church for my event. They lost power the night before at like 7 p.m. and didn't get power back until 11 a.m. of the day of the show. So all of the chefs and the cooks were very worried because they essentially got power that morning.
Wow.
And that is dealing with adversity, right? I mean, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And I think the fourth line on that list is delegate, right? Get people to help you. Don't pile too much on your shoulders. I mean, you've talked a lot about this in the past.
Yeah, I think
don't take on too much.
I think that anybody that is in charge of or in control of a charity event is that personality that does take on too much. And they are that personality that has things in their mind a certain way and they want things to go a certain way. So I know this because I'm this personality. If you have an idea and you can come across as forceful or almost over opinionated, which I know you boys don't feel that way about me.
No.
But it takes that personality to move it forward. It does. It takes that personality to move. You better change your face, boy. It takes that personality to move forward, and and it's very difficult to not have that personality. It is.
We've been trained, and I'm sure many of you have been trained, that as long as you make your goal or make your money, then no matter what else happens, the night was a success.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys believe that?
I do to a point.
Is it?
I think that there are different parts of it that you get caught up into the mechanics of things, and maybe you are the one that's strictly in charge of the meal, or you have been delegated to be strictly in charge of the silent auction, or a certain VIP table, or this or that, the other thing, and there are still times where your event can come off rough and still make money, but you still will leave not feeling good because it didn't come out the way you wanted it to turn out. Aesthetically, is, if that makes sense. So let it go, let it go, let it go. You know what I mean? You got to. You got to let it go. Just know that we're here to raise money. That's our end goal.
Know that the event will never be perfect. And I think so many of us strive for a perfect event. And they try to go through every specific detail, but at the end of the day, something is going to go haywire. Something is not going to go as planned. And the way that you kind of maneuver those different scenarios is really what's going to be remembered by the group. In terms of stress and trying to mitigate that, it's difficult because there are so many different factors coming together on one specific night. You go and you Google the most stressful positions out there, and events is within the top 5 of one of the most stressful things that you can be a part of, just because there's so many factors and so much leaning on different parties to make it all come out perfectly. And at the end of the day, it's never perfect. So my advice to any event planner is to prioritize what's really important. Right? Because when you get there, there's going to be 50,000 things that you're going to want to get done. Grab the top 3 that are essential to make the night go off in a seemingly seamless way, and prioritize those. Focus on those. Keep in mind that you're only one person. You can only do so much. Delegate as much as you can, but at the same time, make sure that those high priority tasks are being completed with efficiency?
The greatest
attention? Yeah.
I think it's also important to try very hard to, if the wheels are falling off your bus and you're the leader in that position, don't let everybody feel your stress, because it will trickle right down, it will trickle right down, clear down to the people that are greeting people at the door. If you're the main dog in charge, try to not let the people around you know that you are super stressed out. This is a skill, by the way, that not many of us have mastered. I would like you to know that.
And it's much easier said than done.
It's way easier said than done.
Yeah, and so much of these events is really a rinse and repeat type environment. In other words, you're going to hold the event, things are going to be good about it, things are going to be not perfect about it, and then you're going to fix that or readdress those things that weren't perfect the following year. And I think that is why COVID and the pandemic has been so devastating to the events industry, is because that year-over-year improvement that we used to see or try to work was no longer applicable for 3 years. So now you're seeing people try to come back after 3 years and reestablish a new baseline, or it's a brand new baseline altogether, and they're trying to move that forward. So I think that's part of the struggle that we're seeing, and that can also provide stress to your environment, because you don't have the reminder of 12 months ago when you had this event earlier to kind of base your trajectory off of. So know that when you get people together and they're there to raise money in whatever capacity, you're going to succeed as long as you give individuals the vehicle to do so. The only way that you don't succeed is by setting expectations that are not achievable. And I think that is a big part of this as well. You're going to incur costs, yes. You're going to want to hit a certain line, yes. But at the end of the day, if you keep it uplifting and you keep the people engaged in what you're doing, the money will come either that night or what we call the trickle effect will take place afterwards.
You can prepare
Right.
the best you possibly can. You can follow our suggestions, and you can get a $5,000 donation at your upper level. You can have a guaranteed at $2,500. You can have Tony and John talking about buying the boat trip. They're going to spend X amount of dollars on it. But there's always going to be an unknown in the fundraising world, right? You can do everything possible in your power to prepare the room and the items, but you still never know how much people are going to choose to give to your organization. That's always going to be an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at that as a failure. Just look at that as a challenge.
And remember, the more that you add to your auction, like more games, more raffles, more this, the more you add to your auction, the more that you have that can potentially not go smoothly or that can add stress to you as one of the leaders of the gala. I think that everything that we're talking about is it's things you already know, right? That you already know that, but that you have this impending doom pressure of having to make sure everybody's got something to do. Not the case. Not the case. Plan what you want to plan. Plan what you think your community would like. And then look at it and keep it simple. KISS. Keep it simple.
Silly.
Always remember to keep it simple because they have too much going on anyway. They're drinking. They're buying raffles. They're not going to be paying attention. We want their main focus to be night in the ballroom. We want it to be night of in the ballroom when the auctioneer takes that mic and is delivering the fund to need.
Yeah, and we had a meeting yesterday with all hands, and we talked for a while, and something that came out of that conversation was something that one of our auctioneers does, and they basically go to that individual that's in charge and say, you've done everything you can up to this point, now it's our job to take it over the finish line. And I think that's how you need to view these events. If you're someone who's assembling this, once you get to that night and the doors are open and everything is rolling, you've done your part.
Yep.
Yeah, there's going to be things that pop off. Yeah, you're going to want to try to take a few issues and handle those. But for the most part, if you've put those teammates in place, you should be able to hand it off and enjoy that event. And if you look at the individuals that have sustained a career in the events industry, they are individuals that are setting up those components where they can hand them off the night of and enjoy the event. Because you're going to affiliate your memories and your affiliation with that event with what has happened that night. So if it's a huge stressful event, you're not going to want to go back. But if it's a fun, uplifting, man, I got to spend time with the ones that I've loved and we raise money for a good cause, that changes the dynamic, your outlook, and thus your happiness in pursuing these events year over year. So try to get the right team in place and know that when the night comes, you want to be able to hand over everything to that team.
Yeah.
What did Mark say last week? Just I forget her name. He's like, hey, we're here, now you enjoy yourself.
Oh, yeah. No, it's...
Yeah.
You relax, you've done everything. Let us take it from here.
Yep.
That's brilliant, right?
That's what you have to do. You have to do that to people because you know what? You guys have worked your butt off to get everything in place. And you've hired us or someone to have it all launched. And I think that's the right word to use is launched because it's all an idea.
It is.
Until the night of. It is all an idea and it's a thought and it's a plan, but it's we launch it night of. And you know what? Go with the flow. Take that 10 minutes, but go with the flow. And have faith that the flow that it's taking, may it be different than yours, is the way that it's going to happen that night. So have confidence. Have confidence in yourself. And have confidence in your team. And you know what? Have confidence in your community. They all know why they're there. And if they don't know why they're there, then you really screwed up.
Don't invite them next year.
And you can improve on that next
And
year.
you can improve on that next year. Says Cindy Lou Who with the...
Right.
Christmas tree.
After watching the video, you got a
Yeah.
nice little hat, it looks like.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Know that we appreciate you. We're going to bring this to a close. We've been kicking around the idea of doing like a 101 type environment. I know we've kind of run back and gone through the basics on this podcast before. We're going to readdress some of those 101s. So if there's anything you want us to cover in terms of like baseline fundraising tactics or specific details, send us a message our way, whether it be via a Q&A next Tuesday or an email, whatever the case may be. We're going to continue to try to give you the basics on how to do a fundraiser. And
Yeah.
hopefully this gave you some tools to combat stress.
If one person benefits from this topic today, it was me.
Oh, bless your heart.
Bless my heart.
We appreciate you guys being with us today.
Yeah.
There's a video version on Facebook if you're not watching that. On Anchor, on the podcatchers, we're doing an audio version. Our YouTube page is blowing up. So thank you all for all you do. That's going to be a wrap for this week. Thanks for joining us, guys.
All right, thanks everybody. Go out, be creative, be bold.
Be courageous.
And go do good.
Keep the stress level low, baby.
Low.
Keep the stress level low, or we're going to bring Willow back.
Yeah. And
Oh, I like
just take a shot of vodka.
Namaste.